Hi buddy, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be starting a brand new campaign with Karl, Franz. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check out the rest of the content on the channel as well. We have dozens and dozens of other campaigns. Most recently, we did a Tamarkon campaign and a Zatan Chaos Dwarf campaign. So be sure to check those out, and I'm constantly releasing more episodes. So keep checking back in, watch more content. If you want to help support the channel, consider turning off the ad block. I'd never run any mid-roll ads. You might get one or two at the beginning, whatever YouTube decides on that, but I never run any mid-rolls, and it does help out a little bit. You can also become a member, less than $1 a day, $5 a month. If you really want to help support the content, that's great. And then if you want to sponsor a campaign, it's $3 an episode, minimum 10 episodes. Just email me at thestrategyprofessor@gmail.com if you're interested in that, and I'll let you know if I'll be able to do it. Okay, let's get in here. So this is after the release of Elspeth and the rework of a lot of stuff going on in the Empire. So Empire was one of my old school favorite factions. It's very versatile, and there's just so many different kinds of situations you could get into back in the day. And then they changed it and made it a lot more of a kind of a tall, chill campaign, with all the diplomacy and how they had it, where you were really discouraged from going to war with other people, and it was mostly just Empire factions in the Empire territory. But over time, they've added a lot more really powerful hostile factions to the region. So you've got Khosrek, the Beastmen to the north are usually pretty powerful. You've got, what's his name, Festus, the Fecundites. I don't remember if his name's Festus, but the Nurgle faction to the north, and then now you've got the Changeling to the southeast, you have the Vampire Counts to the southeast, so you've got a lot of hostile factions in the area that are pretty strong and make it a much more interesting campaign. And now, most recently, and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get in there, they've revamped a lot of the Empire and sort of streamlined a lot of it to allow for you to really tap into a lot of that versatility of their roster, and they've taken away a lot of the annoying aspects of building some of those units, mainly the armory, to kind of bring them in line power-wise with the other factions, because they were really getting outscaled by a lot of the new factions, especially the Warhammer 3 bad guy factions, all the chaos stuff. It just absolutely steamrolled Empire most of the time, so now they've made it a little bit more fair. At least for the player, if you're making the right decisions, you can stand up to some of those other factions. Okay, so Karl has received a lot of changes too. So he has the Elector counts, and they've made that a lot more interesting. We'll talk about that when we get in there. He can trespass in Empire regions without penalty, so this is nice if you're having to run down some of the bad guy factions through a potential ally's territory, but you haven't got the military access yet. That's nice. Allegiance points plus 25%, so if you do end up making friends with some people out there, then you will get access to some of their troops a little bit more, which could be pretty nice. Campaign movement range plus 10%, so that's handy for all armies, not just Karl, so that's good. And then plus 5 growth per allied faction. And when they say ally, I believe they probably mean military ally. I'm not 100% about that, but that's a nice little bonus. Not, you know, insane, but still pretty good. And then his specific lord effects, he can replenish in neutral territory. So again, if you're walking through people's property, you're still going to be able to replenish, which is nice. Minus 20% upkeep for Elector count state troops. That's kind of Karl's specialty, are the Elector count things. So he used to really hardcore specialize in Reiksguard and Greatswords, and he still has lots of bonuses for those. But now it's this Elector count system that they really lean into, which I think is cool. And then 5% extra weapon strength and missile damage per rank for Elector count troops. So if you get those things up to rank 9, they're going to have 45% more damage, which is obviously really, really good. So that's great. Elspeth is cool. I did record a few episodes with her. I never released them, but tried it out. I don't know, she's fine. I don't want to like dump on her. She's cool. It's a different kind of experience. She does have the workshop, which is very powerful, but she doesn't have the Elector count system. She focuses very heavily on the gunpowder units, which are specialized niche units in my opinion. But the main thing is she doesn't have the Elector counts. And I just want to try out that new system because I just like kind of the randomness of it, where there's a lot of strategic diversity. You have to kind of choose how many of these you're going to try to save for hot situations versus how much you're going to try to use some of this system to get advantages early on and snowball. So hopefully it'll make for some interesting choices, but let's go ahead and get in there. Oh, and as usual, let's make sure we got everything set up. So hardest difficulty on everything legendary, and they did change it. I think on the most recent release you have to select Iron Man mode if you don't want to be able to go back to previous saves, which I like that, where you have to live with the consequences. That used to come standard on legendary, but they took that off, and then we'll just keep all the rest of the stuff standard. Okay, so now they've made all of the Empire people, they all have their own different, distinct sort of systems that they use, which I think is pretty cool. I love it when they do that with factions. I think Skaven is perhaps one of the best examples of that, and one of the earliest examples where each lord has different resource systems and specializes in different units. And I think that makes for really fun replayability. So even though it's Empire, if you play Elspeth, or you play Volkmar, or you play Balthazar Gelt, or you play Wolfheart, or whatever down in the jungle, regardless of whoever you play, you're going to get a different experience. So different geography, different resource system, different units emphasized. So I really like what they've done with that. But that means that Karl is the only one that has the diplomacy system, the prestige system. And I think, and I haven't played all the other ones yet, but I think this one's probably the most strategically interesting. But Balthazar does not have this. He has like a College of Magic, and Elspeth does not have it. I was a little disappointed Elspeth didn't have it, because they didn't announce, at least I didn't catch it, maybe they did, I don't look at every announcement. But they didn't really make it clear to me that they were getting rid of this Imperial Authority Elector Count system for everybody else except for Karl. So Karl's the only one that has this now. So basically how this works, and it'll say it right here, it's a measure of how well you're controlling Empire property. So if Empire properties are owned by any Empire faction, now Marienburg does not count as an Empire faction, there are a couple of outliers, but usually if it's a human faction that controls the property, then it counts. But again, there are a lot of bad guy factions in here now that are really powerful that are going to start taking these things away. So you've got vampire counts, you have the wood elves over here, you've got beastmen are in here, you have the Nurgle people over here, you have some more vampires over here. So there's a lot of, and there's vampires down to the south where what's his name used to be. Now I don't know if she's going to be able to deal with them early on or not. There's also Savage Orcs down here, which are pretty strong in the early game. And there's Skaven in here. Usually the Skaven get wiped. But there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of different factions. There's a lot more diversity than there used to be. So if these other factions start getting blasted, then your Imperial Authority goes down, even if it's not your property. If just Empire is dying all over the place, or they're losing their properties, then this goes down and you start getting massive penalties. So you are heavily encouraged to go help these people out and kill these evil factions on their property, and make sure that at least some Empire faction owns the property. So even if they're not military allies with you or whatever, you're just encouraged to get involved and try to save everybody as much as you can. So just everything's going to start catching on fire, and you're going to have to run around. That's why I think this is, we'll see how it plays out, but I'm not sure if this is a great beginner campaign again, because I feel like you're constantly going to have a lot of difficult choices to make on where you want to deploy your armies, who you want to save, who you have to let die, how you're going to use these diplomatic systems, how you're going to break up your armies, because you're going to have multiple armies. So, you know, what can you get away with? Because you want to run as, you know, as cheap of an army as possible, so that you have enough money to spend on your other armies, or to advance your towns, or whatever. So anyways, you try to keep everything alive. You get prestige points for doing various things. So if you win battles, you get it. Certain buildings can give it. There are certain events that can give prestige. You'll see those events fairly often, where you have to choose whose side are you on. Are you going to side with you know, Marienburg in this issue, or are you going to side with Midland in this issue, and one of them you'll gain fealty, one of them you'll lose fealty. And as you get fealty with people, I don't know if they change that, if you get any sort of bonuses. But basically, once you get to 10, then you can confederate with him. Which is nice, because confederations are really, really hard to come by in Warhammer 3 unless there's a special quest that gives you a confederation. It was a lot easier in Warhammer 2. I think that's a big part of why I think Warhammer 3 is harder than Warhammer 2, in some ways. In some ways it's easier, but in some ways it's harder, and confederations is definitely one of the ways that it's harder. So, it says now you have to use a decree to get it. We'll see. You used to get it almost automatically if you wanted it. I will say, as a caveat to that, though, be careful. It's not always wise to take the confederation, because I tried to play this campaign before it was reworked. I never released the episodes, but I went through probably like 8 episodes or so. And then I just never ended up releasing it or something last winter. But if you come up here and let's say you try to confederate with Midland, but then you've got Beastmen up here, and you've got the Fecundites. They're causing all this corruption. It's going to cause rebellions, and they're constantly attacking you. You have to put an army up there to protect it. So, even though you might inherit a property up here, is it really worth it if you have to spend 3,000 gold and deploy an army that's not quite strong enough to beat these factions, but that constantly has to, like, watch your back? Versus if you just let the AI control it and you just military ally them, then they will pay for the 20-stack army to go there. And then you can potentially just get access to some of their units with the alliance points or whatever. So, again, you're not going to have enough armies to cover everywhere early on in the game, certainly. So, you got to be very careful. Sometimes it's smarter to just not immediately confederate the faction and just let them fend for themselves for a little bit and just take the military ally thing. Because I kind of made the mistake of trying to commit to up here, and I just had to give it up because I could not sustain it anymore. I just had to let it burn. Okay, let's get into a fight and then we'll talk some more. Okay, I guess we don't get a hero. I thought we got something. Maybe... I don't remember if we get a mage early or not. There used to be a quest, like, over here in Bloodpine Woods where you could get a mage fairly early on, but I don't remember if they've streamlined that or not. Okay. So let's go ahead and fight, and then we'll talk about some more stuff. But there will be quite a bit of talking in the first episode just to kind of walk you through some of the new changes, and we'll go ahead and fight it. We just want to be as healthy as possible. But yeah, so the prestige, how you get the points is largely the same, but the way that you use them is a bit different. So I think we will get the dilemmas, which is one of my favorites. I just love having a little bit of RNG in there. Just, I think it makes for good strategy when it's not kind of deterministic what you're going to do with those points. But now you have something that can, where you know what you're getting if you want to spend them in the new system that I'll show you. But you still also, I think, will have those random events that are good. Now, they did not have any Cav. He's not Cav. Okay.
Don't miss fire.
Now, another change that they made, at least on Legendary, is that the AI is way, way better at dealing with artillery. So they will dodge almost everything that you do with your mortar if you don't have anything to distract them or hold them still. So that's really annoying, but somewhat realistic. But they dodge mortar shells extremely well. So you'll notice here, I'll fire on them, but it's because we have so much ammo, we might as well. But they will dodge almost everything, and it'll be annoying. Now, you don't have a lot of, see, watch them. So they dodged all the mortar shells there. See if we can hit them. Now, sometimes you can get the archers to stand still here. Well, they didn't even dodge any, but... Okay, we'll just run around here. But you don't have a lot of monsters. You have a ton of infantry, especially early on. You do have some cav, but having a very strong ward that's good in melee is really important. So that's another sort of advantage of... I think we're going to be able to get him. So that means that you are very susceptible to magic, you are very susceptible to monsters. Now you do have access to early halberds, so that's cool. Actually, let's get down here and charge these guys in the back. So you do have some nice versatility, but it is a lot of... Oh, I guess I should have used this too. You gotta be careful with this hill, like sometimes you can't get clean shots. What are we doing here? Get fight these dudes. So that is historically like one of the many problems with potential bad guy or good guy factions is that these days they don't have monsters, so it's very difficult on sieges. Like you can just get blown out by a lot of different things in sieges. Because you don't have, you know, trolls or chaos spawn or just a lot of these things that can get down there and beat down the doors really easily. You can use artillery, like cannons, to do that, but it takes a little bit longer.
Conditions acceptable. Sigma commands. Karl, Franz.
But you definitely... There are some of your units that can get pretty strong. They have a lot of buffs for the great swords, but you're probably not going to have as crazy of like a straight up doom stack as a lot of the bad guy factions. Another thing that's kind of annoying historically is that you don't get any sort of benefit from corruption. So they reworked that heavily in Warhammer 3 to where any faction that has corruption usually gets massive benefits. I mean, one of the biggest ones, especially on Legendary, is you get like a free at least 5 to 10 public order for being very corrupt. And usually, I think they're just gonna die anyways there. Usually there's other perks too. Versus as a good guy faction, you don't get anything, I don't think. We'll see if they changed it. But you don't get anything for having no corruption or keeping your area clean. It'd be nice if they made it where you got public order for having no corruption, but would that be OP? I don't know. I feel like a lot of the good guy factions are kind of underpowered because they actually, a lot of times they have to pay to deal with corruption. So you have to buy, you know, some public order building, or they have to deal with not getting the public order bonus from having corruption, I should say. Okay, so pretty simple choices here. I think we'll just take the gold. Most of the time we're probably going to take gold. Yeah, historically, you know, almost every faction had to get public order buildings. That's just something you had to do, or you had to deal with rebellions. On Legendary, that was just part of it, part of the price, but the bad guy factions don't have that anymore. So we do get some bonuses here, so that's nice. At least we have a system where we can get a little bit more control, up to 3. And they did buff some of the public order buildings to make them less bad. So it's still 1,500 gold to get one of these. It's for control. You do have a provincial edict. It's not showing me here, but you have one that can also give you some control. But on Legendary, you're going to have -8 no matter what. So you have to find some way to kind of overcome that. Now, rebellions aren't as much of a problem as they used to be back in the day, but it does lower your growth once you get down past like -25 or so. And I think like -75 is -25 growth or something like that. So it definitely does add up. But I think they did increase the growth on this. I think it used to be 15. I might be wrong about that. But they've given some of these buildings a little bit of extra perks. So this is 20 growth and 2% replenishment. I think it used to just be flat growth. And now this gives upkeep reduction for armies in the region too. So if you do need to post up, you know, an army just to protect a region, it's a little bit less taxing. They also recently made the protection building cheaper and at a lower tier. So now at tier 2, then you can actually get this building. So this is a great way to combat, especially, you know, things like beastmen that are constantly going invisible on your property, and it was really, really obnoxious to try to deal with it. Now this will reveal them automatically, whether it's something in ambush stance or, you know, the beastmen hidden paths or whatever. And this helps you discover Skaven undercities and trickster cults a little bit better. Now this might be a glitch, I don't know, but it's weird that it goes from 2,000 at level 2 to 1,500 at level 3. I don't know if that's an oversight or what, but you get a little bit more discoverability. This building also helps with plagues. So this is basically the I don't want to deal with random BS mechanics messing up my property. Like, that's it. So it helps you with plagues, helps you with corruption, and helps you with hidden stuff. So that's nice. And you get control on top of it. So it doesn't feel like it's a total waste. Because before, I think it was like 4,000 gold, tier 3, took forever to make, and I think it just lowered corruption and added discoverability. But now it does plagues and hidden stuff too. So that's a really nice improvement. This thing's just basically what it was. It's money. The roads now give global recruitment duration -1 turn. So that's actually pretty nice. If you end up taking some properties that are far away and you get them up to tier 3, now you can globally recruit at least basic units for just 1, which I wish more factions had that. Ways to lower global recruitment as you scale up in the game, either through technologies or other mechanics, buildings, whatever. So I like that it has this. I don't know that it's always worth it, but it's cool. I know there used to be a mod where this gave like trade bonuses. I kind of liked that too. It's like 5% trade bonus. I don't think it has that anymore here, but so tier 4, it's -2 global recruitment. It'd be nice if it gave like recruitment minus recruitment cost or something here too, but whatever. It's nice. It's niche. But some of the big bonuses here is they shuffled around some of these units in their tiers and what the requirements are. So the biggest thing is they no longer have an armory. Thank God. That was such an annoying unit, or annoying building. You had to have an armory to build handgunners, which are like, I think, fairly basic units. You had to have it for great swords, which are powerful, but there's so many factions that have units that are similar to great swords at tier 3 that don't have that secondary building. So I'm glad they got rid of that. I think you had to have it for Empire Knights. So all of these things no longer require the armory. So you can just build the building and you've got it, which is awesome. That also frees up a building slot so that you can get more growth, more money, public order, and additional recruitment building, all that stuff. So that's nice. Now they also made the Outriders tier 2. I'm pretty sure these things used to be tier 3. And I think they used to be in the cavalry tree. I might be wrong about some of that, but I think they used to be in the cavalry tree. And now you've got the Outriders with grenade launchers being at tier 3. These things are incredibly powerful, both of them, but especially the grenade launcher ones, because, like I said before, the AI is going to dodge a lot of your mortar shells. They're going to dodge your rocket battery. They can't dodge the cannons as well because those are really fast, but cannons have a lot of problems with line of sight and things like that, shooting through trees, having a low arcing shot, all of that. But these Outriders get around that really well. They're very accurate. You just run right up to them. They are somewhat vulnerable to missile infantry, so you got to be careful with that. But they can completely shred melee infantry. So very nice, and they're pretty fast too at 84. So they can outrun most heavy cav. So very good. And then you've got the Hochland long rifles. These are nice, good sniper units. They're kind of like the Giselles for the Skaven. I think they do a little bit less damage. And they have the snipe ability, so you can't see them unless you get really close up on them. So these are really handy. I haven't been able to use these yet, but that's very nice for sniping out enemy lords or large units or whatever. So we'll probably want that fairly early if we can get it. That would help out a lot with Festus if we could snipe him out. But this is a very, very good tree here now because it's got your Outriders, which you definitely want. It's got the Witch Hunter, who kind of sucks in combat, I think, unless they buffed him up some. But he does have damage walls, which is really nice, and assassinate, two really good ones. Especially damage walls, because again, we have a hard time taking down the doors in fights in a lot of situations. Then you have these Nuln iron sights. Now, I'm not super huge on these most of the time. They do get a little bit more accuracy and reload skill. They do a lot more damage than traditional pistoliers, so we'll still get them. They're good. They do have more armor, which is nice, so they can actually trade fire with enemy missile units a little bit better. But it's the line of sight is just such a huge issue for these gunpowder units. But I do think that having one or two of them, you know, can be okay. I think these the standard Outriders are just way better. They do 37 damage instead of 31. There's 60 of them. There's 60 of the iron sights. They do have less armor and they have less range, but they're mobile. So they can actually run around and get their shots off. And at the end of the day, they're like cavalry. So if you just need something to run down fleeing units or whatever, you don't have dogs or anything like that as Empire. So you can just chase after them with the Outriders if you need to. Okay, so this is probably one of the newer trees that's been sort of revamped. The Pistoliers are now tier 1, 2, which is nice. They're not amazing, and they're a lot cheaper than they used to be. They're 125. I think they used to be 150. They do pretty good damage. They have low ammo. They don't have a lot of armor-piercing damage. But for a tier 1 unit, these are nice. I mean, they're basically dogs in terms of the price. They can run stuff down, and they can also fire. So, pretty handy. And then the Empire Captain, Witch Hunter, all of these guys are available at tier 2, which is great. And then tier 3 gives you one extra recruitment of them. So you don't have to like get to tier 4 or anything for that anymore. I guess there really was no tier 4 on some of these, but that's good. And you really want to get a captain ASAP because they have training, which they tremendously buffed a few patches ago to where it increases your experience gained for everything in the army by a lot. It's 25% base, and I think you can bump it up to like 40 or 50%. So it's a lot. It used to be a flat number that was like laughable, like 30 flat extra experience when it takes like over 1,000 to level up. But now it's a percentage, so that's very, very good. And you just need more fighters because you don't have monsters. You have to have stuff that can get in there and kill enemy lords. They also get a flying mount, I believe, at some point, and you don't have standard flying units. So you really need heroes that can fly and help you out with sieges and stuff like that. So Empire Captains are very good. Halberds no longer require the armory, so they're actually a good unit to get early. For tier 2, these are pretty good. For 130 gold, they're cheap. They are low armor like most Empire units, but they do heavy armor piercing damage, and they get 16 bonus versus large, and there's a lot of different upgrades you can get for them too. So those are pretty nice. And the great swords got huge buffs over time. I think they used to get +9 versus infantry. Now that's up to +14. I think they increased their baseline numbers a little bit too. I'm not 100% about that. But basically, against infantry now, you're getting 46 melee attack and 49 weapon strength off of those. So they are hitting pretty hard. They have nice armor at 95. It's mostly armor penetrating damage too. So, and a reasonable price at 225. So I don't remember the exact stats. They're probably not as good as like the Bloodletters from Khorne. They have a lot more armor, but they're definitely up there as far as like early access, you know, early to mid game infantry units. They're going to be really good. Huntsmen are still kind of worthless. You do have some nice range. You get the bonus versus large. So that's handy. But you're probably not going to be using that most of the time. You probably want to start bringing in stuff like the, you know, Outriders, artillery, things like that for your range damage. But they are an upgrade to crossbowmen if you do want that arcing shot. Okay, and then some of the other newer units, they do have mortars at tier 2. I love this change, especially because the AI is going to dodge a lot of your mortar shots now. So I think it's safe to put them at tier 2, which is handy. They're still pretty good on sieges because units don't have as much space to run around in during a siege. So I think they'll still be pretty solid in sieges. Although you will probably hit some of your own units too, so you got to be careful with that. You got the war wagons, which I don't know if these are better than Outriders or not. We can try them out. They're missile damage, but there's only 4 of them. They do, like, a lot more damage. They do about, I don't know. It's similar. They have more ammo is the big thing, and they have more armor. So they're about the same price, but I'm not sure. We'll just have to test them out and see who's stronger, the Outriders or this thing. So how much does this weigh? 1,200. It's not that much. It does have, like, you can charge bonus in, but it's got really low melee attack and defense. It's probably a bad idea, but it's something to consider. And then you've got the war wagons with mortars. Now, these are nice because you can kind of, you know, rotate around and maneuver your mortars around a little bit better. So, I don't know. We'll just have to see how that pans out. You got the cannons. And then the rest of it is about the same. They did nerf the land ship fairly recently. I don't remember what the changes are, but this is just a good kind of high HP, high armor, disruptive chariot that you can basically run through the back line. I think it does like okay missile damage too. I love that it's at tier 4 because tier 5 is just so hard to get to. And then you still have the steam tank up here, which is similar to what it used to be, but now they do have a volley gun variant, which is shorter range but does a lot more damage to infantry, so it's probably pretty good. Yeah, Black Rose Cavalry, which I think is probably your best cavalry at tier 3. It does get a bonus versus infantry. It does have higher melee defense, so if you just stand in combat, 44-48 is pretty good. It doesn't have a lot of armor piercing damage, but it's pretty solid. Now, Reiksguard, Karl does get a lot of bonuses for Reiksguard, but it has way less stats. As you can see, it's got 34, 31, but it has a heavier charge bonus, and I think it weighs a little bit more. It's also got a shield. These also have a shield. So that's 86 flat stats with melee attack and defense versus 65. 40 weapon strength versus 48, basically, but that only has 34 charge versus 62. I'd probably rather have Black Rose. But I think the demigriffs are still going to be king if you get to these. Heavy armor, and the biggest thing is that's your armor piercing damage. Huge armor piercing, big charge. Stats are a little bit lower than Black Rose, but I think just having a higher weapon strength and specifically armor piercing weapon strength is good. And there's also an anti-large variant. This kind of the OG cavalry superiority in it. Okay, let's get another fight in here. And we'll talk about the last couple of systems. Will be good. Okay, I think I'm trying to remember if Route Marcher. It's going to take us 2 turns to get over here, anyways.
By the comet.
So I think we'll start with Hold the Line. Very nice. 5 melee defense and 4 leadership for everybody that's grouped around him. So I think we'll get that, and then Inspiring Presence is also pretty solid. At tier 1, and then we'll probably go through the blue tree after that.
For our nation.
Alright, same drill. Somehow they think this one's going to be close. So there's a lot of different units you can get. There aren't that many that are outright bad. I think the Fanatic units, the no armor, unbreakable, religious units are not that good with this army. Maybe they're good with Volkmore if he gives them a lot of buffs. But that's really one of the only units that I think doesn't have much of a tactical place. I think the Sun Knights, Knights of the Blazing Sun or whatever, are also questionable. But there's not a penalty anymore, I don't think, for hiring those without having Tabelheim. I'm not 100% about that, though. Now, these are also the state troops you can get, and I'll show you the state troops in a second, but most of them have different bonuses, so this gives 5 extra melee attack and 4 leadership if you're, if you're around them, and they're unbreakable. It's obviously a strong unit. Actually, let's...
State troops ready!
Do they even have any ranged? No.
The omens are good, brothers. Ready!
Okay, so we're not even going to need a lot of these dudes, probably.
Taking aim! Rexguard! I will not stand idle!
Those guys. And I mean, we'll use these guys, but I don't think we're probably going to need them that much.
By Ulrich's wrath! Moving now!
Oh, they do have some archers, okay.
In the name of the twin-tailed comet! Taking position! Pick targets! Rexguard Knights! Go! Quick march! At speed!
Do have some spears sitting over near them. See if we can pull them a little bit this way.
No lingering! To battle! Reynolds aim! We're ready! All ranks, fire! For the Warhammer! Take the ground!
Okay, those do not have shields. So you want to try to hit stuff that's non-shielded if you can.
Heldenhammer! Fire! Quick march! We are Sigmar's
What are we doing?
heirs!
Oh my gosh, did they kite me? That hard?
Rexguard Knights! Ready! Cannons fire! Yes, sir, quickly! Fire! Fire! Quickly! For the Emperor! Mortar! I foresee that! We are ready! Charge! Taking position! For the Emperor! No lingering! No lingering! We serve the Emperor! At your service! Understood! Yes! Very well! Quakes! To battle! We are ready to battle! Handgunners! Shoot them! Swordsman! Go! Take the ground! Moving now! Karl, Franz! Swordsmen! Yes, sir! Handgunners! Missile infantry! And range! My governors! Cavaliers! Prepare for combat! We are Sigmar's heirs!
can't see around the hill.
Great swords! Understood! We are ready!
Karl's getting kind of touched up there. I mean, he's going to heal a lot, I think.
Finding range!
Oh, whoa, whoa.
In range! Taking position! For the Howling Hammer! Attack! Show us the foe! To me, man! Moving now!
I think they're all about to run.
Let's go! That's me!
How many did... Mortars killed 5 units. They dropped like almost half their ammo and killed 5 units. So that's a far cry from the mortars of old. Now, if you have some lords that are advanced, like if we get Deathclaw, you know, with Karl Franz, if you jump down in the middle of a bunch of infantry and then fire all your mortars while they're tied up, then they can probably do some damage. But it does slow their advance a little bit. It can help against missile infantry. But it's definitely a lot less powerful than it used to be. Okay, so we got 96 prestige. I think typically you just want to occupy unless you really have to. Like, you don't get a lot of sack bonuses. It costs more money to repair now. Like, the strategy way back in the day used to be sack and then occupy. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold there. Oh, that's nice.
As is my right
But,
by Sigmar's crown.
I think that meta has changed a little bit. It just costs too much money, which makes sense, you know, for kind of a good guy faction. Especially like your own people. You probably don't want to sack and then occupy. The 75 experience points per turn does add up. I don't think we're going to need Route Marcher to get to the next destination. I think it's going to take us 2 turns no matter what. So, what we want to do with
Is it time?
with Karl, because we're going to have so many diverse units, there are some good things in here, but there's not that many great trees. Like, for late game, this is awesome. 12 armor and weapon strength plus 12% for demigriffs and greatswords. So that's good. I think the demigriffs used to be part of Mighty Forge. I can't remember. But I like that they put it with the greatswords. And how armor works, if you're not sure, at least in Warhammer 3 these days, is they take some randomized number between 100% of your armor value as a percentage and 50% of your armor value as a percentage. So on average, it's going to be 75% of whatever your armor is, and that's the percentage of damage that's non-armor piercing damage that it's going to block. So when you have 12 armor, it's going to block on average about 8% of the incoming damage for non-armor piercing damage. For armor piercing damage, it just 100% ignores armor, period. And that's why it's so strong, because when you start dealing against these high armor targets that have like 100 armor, you know, like the greatswords have 95, but just for easier math, just call it 100. You know, it's going to block 75% of the incoming damage against these targets. But armor piercing goes through a lot, right? So if you have 100 non-armor piercing damage, or whatever, that's going to be about the equivalent of 25 armor piercing damage against a target like that on average. So it's like 4 times as effective. So that's why armor piercing is such a big deal, especially against more elite troops. But anyways, you have some okay stuff here. Emperor's Finest is actually pretty decent. It doesn't affect greatswords, but it does affect your halberds, which are going to be like your go-to anti-large infantry for the whole game. It is only 6-6. Back in the day, it used to be 12-12. I think it got nerfed to 8-8. Now it's 6-6, so it's questionable. It's not great. You've got Pistol Corps, which is missile strength 8% and 20% ammo. Now, that includes your cavalry missiles, such as your grenade launchers here, and just your everyday archers, your Nolan Ironsides, your Hawkwood long rifle, so that's pretty decent. Speed of Horse is just movement speed and charge bonus for your knights. Mighty Forge is for your large mechanical stuff, which is okay, but not amazing. And then the gunnery is really good, and this used to be something worth rushing with the mortars, but they've nerfed the amount. Now it's only 8% missile strength instead of 12%, and as we've seen, the mortars are not nearly as effective as they used to be. So for that reason, I wouldn't go Red Tree early. I would just wait until later in the game, and then you'll probably want to get Honest Steel for sure, and then after that, I don't know, probably this Pistol Corps, but you could do the gunnery for really late game stuff, maybe. But your blue tree is not great in the early levels. You have the 15% recruitment, which is kind of whatever. You have control of local province, which is okay. You have lowering corruption. Can be good if you start trying to take over beastmen or vampire properties, which will probably happen. So first 4 points there, pretty bad. But over here you get Irrepressible, which is amazing. This is 30% replenishment on Karl, and he gets 15% extra experience. Now, I don't know if that's just him or if that's all characters. I think it's just him. And wound recovery time, just in case you get killed in battle, which is nice. So that's really, really good. You have Lightning Strike, Classic. You need this for taking down hordes of enemy units, especially things like vampires that like to raise up, multiple armies. When we fight Vlad, he'll probably have like 4 armies by that point. So Lightning Strike is key for that. You do have to get 3 points in it versus back in the day it was just a single point thing, but it's definitely worth it. Quartermaster has been nerfed a lot, down to 9% from 15% like it used to be, but it also is less upkeep now for secondary armies, so it only costs 4% for each extra army instead of 15% on legendary. So it makes sense they would lower the skills here to kind of compensate so it's not too powerful. But still very good, worth getting. Logistician, 6%. Again, this used to be like 15%, but 6% still pretty good. Alert is questionable, but can be good versus things like Beastman and Skaven. And Headhunter is nice. They buffed that up somewhere along the line. So it's 8% upkeep reduction, campaign movement range, rank, local recruitment capacity. Very, very good. So you're mostly going in this tree for Lightning Strike and Headhunter. But just anything that's going to keep your costs down so you can go wider and get more armies. Now his specialty stuff is pretty good. Unit experience gain, ward recruit rank, and just army recruit ranks. All of those are great. Imperial Special Forces. Now this is something that I think that what used to be just a standard ward bonus that he had, but now they've turned it into a skill that you unlock later in the game. But it's still really good. So you get 8 extra melee for Reichsguard. Then you get 10 bonus versus infantry for great swords. That's going to bump them up to like whatever it is, close to 60-60 on the melee attack and damage. And then bonus versus large for Reichsguard is nice. Demigryphs are still better. Knights of the Rose are still probably going to be better. But that is handy. Emperor's Men. So this is Electric Count stuff. This one's new. Minus 15% vigor loss for all armies, all Electric Count state troops. So that's really good. Armor plus 10 for all Electric Counts, leadership, and missile strength. So that's really, really nice buff to your whole faction. And then you get minus upkeep for every cavalry except for Demigryphs, basically. Which kind of sucks. I wish they gave the Demis more, but they are really strong. Majestic Enforcer, it's kind of whatever. The growth is handy. And then this one, the 10% weapon strength and perfect vigor. Now, he also gets Deathclaw eventually, which is not telling you how much HP it has there. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 7,000 or 8,000. So not as much as like contemporary, like big dragon mounts, but it's still a really good mount. Okay. So that's it for that. As far as the technologies go, they did switch around quite a few of these. Most of these up here are about the same. And this is where we want to go early on, whereas we're going to have a lot of state troops, and even with our secondary armies, we're going to have a lot of these guys. They are fairly weak compared to other factions in the early game, so they really need all the help they can get. So this will give us recruit rank for all infantry, and that does include greatswords, so this does scale, and it also includes your missile infantry, like your Nuln Ironsides, and stuff like that. So you get recruit rank, that's new. It used to just be leadership and speed, so that's handy. Then we really want to get over to state-issued armor, so that's 15 armor for everything, including missile infantry, and now it also gives you an extra 10% missile resist, so that part is new. So that's really, really good. Most of your units are pretty low armor to begin with. State-issued weapons for melee attack and defense. So that's handy. That does also affect greatswords. And improved weaponry, so charge bonus and weapon strength is pretty good. So I would get at least to state-issued armor. The weapons and this improved heavy weapons are good, but not as necessary. But I would say you definitely want this armor early on for your units. And then over here, the growth plus casualty replenishment rate 5% is really good. And then you get minus 10% for all construction, which is handy. Assembly lines, that's where most of your income is going to come from, is very good. And then architects, minus 25% construction time for all of your buildings, which is good. Now, I don't know how that rounds, so if it's like something that takes 2 turns, does it take it down to 1 turn or not? So percentage is a little odd. I wish it was just a flat 1 turn, so I'm not sure how good that is or not, but okay. And then supply wagons is movement range and tradable resources, which is okay. Colonial factors is trade tariffs, so if you have a bunch of trade deals, that can be good. Guildmaster, and then commodity trading. So this is okay. Some of these other buffs up here, like later in the game, are pretty good. So if you're going for a lot of outriders, this can be good. 10% extra damage. That's missile infantry units. That does not include outriders anymore. So if you're doing a lot of Ironsides and things, those can be good, but probably not going to do that as much. This one is for the Pistoliers, so that's probably worth getting if you're going to do a lot of the grenade launcher guys, which I think are really good. If you want to do the melee cavalry later on, you can get improved armor and missile resist, which is good. Vigor loss reduction is good, and this stuff does affect demigryphs too. Blinkers for charge bonus and leadership, and then 5/5 is okay. This is for artillery. I would probably not get this stuff. Artillery is questionable, as we've seen. It can be good, but I would just upgrade other things that's a little bit more reliable. And this one's for land ships, and it's not even that great. I mean, the charge bonus is good. But maybe late game, I would probably hold off on that one. And this other stuff I probably wouldn't get. The College of Magic is okay. I could be wrong about this, but it just feels like there's probably better options out there most of the time. This thing gives you extra capacity for heroes, which maybe later on in the game, if you really want some more heroes, can be good. It gives you an extra global recruitment capacity eventually, but all of these take a lot of turns, and you have to have all 4 of these to get the thing in the middle, so it's questionable. They changed a couple of these around where you can get relations with different factions that are pretty good, and some of them give you some bonuses, like recruit with Bretonia. You get recruit rank and recruitment costs, which is okay. Allegiance points 20% could be good if you start to get a lot of military allies. Trade tariffs, but it's expensive. So these are like later in the game, maybe specialized situations. These used to be good, but I feel like they got nerfed a little bit. The only one I would do is probably Ruinous Breeds. That's anything that's chaos related. You get 5% extra weapon strength, but it's 7,000 gold. I mean, the extra leadership is nice because a lot of those units do cause fear, but yeah, that's probably the only one I would think would be worth getting. Then you have elector count stuff. Now, I don't know if this is going to be worth it or not. So you can do diplomatic talks between other factions. So basically you can use your prestige to buy diplomacy with them. And then this one, all Emperor's decrees are upgraded. So I don't know if that means they're doubled or like what exactly that means. But 5,000 is a pretty big cost. But maybe at some point it's worth it. I'm not sure. Okay. So the new system here, this part is the same, basically, the elector count system. So you have to physically control this property. You can't do it through military obligation or whatever. You have to physically control it to be able to unlock these bonuses. But whenever you control something, you assign an elector count. So this is a lord that you have to hire, and you make them an elector count. And then they get this bonus. So, upkeep minus 3%. That's faction-wide every time you control one of these places. And then it's recruit rank plus 2 for Empire Knights. So that's only that army. And then the research rate 10% is obviously faction-wide. Then you get access to this. You do not have to put this on that guy, I don't think, who's the elector count. I think you can move this around to whomever. You just have this in your possession as long as you control that property. So you can put this, I think you might be able to put it on heroes or other lords or whatever. We'll have to see how it plays out. But this one doesn't do anything that special as far as like faction wide. You get some control, some good combat stuff, some post-battle loot. And then you also get access to this elector count troop. So some of them have different cooldowns, but I think that you can have multiple of these troops spread out amongst all of your armies, so it's not like a regiment of renown. But I don't think. We'll see. I think you can have multiples though. And it's kind of like a regiment in the sense that you can recruit it anywhere, anytime for, I believe, 1 turn, but it has a very long cooldown on it. But the cooldown is ticking even while the unit is still out there on the field, unlike a regiment of renown, which the cooldown only starts ticking once the unit dies. Okay, and you've got all these other ones. Some of the biggest ones, Elspeth gets artillery stuff, Bloodbringer, which kind of sucks, but she gets the steam tank, which is probably the best elector count unit. It's a tier 5 unit. It's really strong. Obviously going to be very good. And I'm not going to go through all of them. The most notable ones, though, that you'll want to go for early, I think, are Elspeth for the steam tank. We're probably going to go for Marienburg anyways. This guy is also not under the... he's not considered Empire. So that means that you can go to war with him. It's not going to cause problems. And if you gain control of that property, then you're going to get more prestige, because then you've got something that wasn't under Empire control that is under Empire control. So Marienburg is a great first place to try to attack, I think. You get 20% income from ports, all provinces. You get magical item drop chance just for that lord. The key to whatever here, Stadsrod, is okay. And then you get the Outriders. Now these are special armor-piercing explosives, super high damage Outriders, so that's a very good unit. Boris is okay. You don't get a lot of huge bonuses there. You get Swords of Ulrich, Halberdiers for up there, Handgunners. Stubborn Bulls are okay. They do heavy armor-piercing damage for Empire Knights, so that's alright. Not amazing, but it's okay. Everlasting Light is like magic damage. I don't remember what their little bonus is. I don't know if it's going to let me see it or not. Anyways, they get a little bonus. Knights of More are pretty good. They cause terror. I thought they had regeneration. Maybe not. Crossbows, Noble Sons, Pistoliers, Eldred's Guard. Okay. So yeah, the most important ones I think are Elspeth, if you can get her hopefully through Confederation later, and then Marienburg early are your biggest ones. And then everything else is just kind of an opportunity cost, just whatever you can get eventually. Okay, then we've got Electoral Machinations, so we'll call it an episode. And then next episode, there'll be a lot less talking and a lot more just getting in there and fighting. I just always like to lay out all of the new stuff for people that haven't played Empire in a while or who are new to the game. So, this is your new system. So again, I don't know how much you should keep in the bank or not, but historically, you will get events fairly frequently where either it's a fealty event, like you have to choose one person or the other, so Talabheim or Hawkland are arguing about some petty crap, and you have to choose whose side you're on. One gets +1 fealty, one gets -1 fealty. So some of the events are like that, but some of them, from what I remember, are, hey, this elector count wants to secede, so they want to go to war with you, and the only way you can stop it is if you have 1,000 prestige to stop them, right? Or sometimes there's an event where it's like, pay 1,000 prestige and everybody gets 1 fealty or something like that. Like you throw a big party for everybody. So I don't know how often those events show up where you need the prestige, but historically it was a good idea to save quite a bit of it. But you didn't used to be able to spend it on anything. It was basically you had those events where you could spend it, or you could do these diplomatic talks where you basically improve relations with people. Now, I don't know how much this does it. I would assume by like maybe 10 or something every time you do that. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. But improving relations are obviously good if you want to try to become military allies. And the higher your relations are with somebody, I think you eventually can get more fealty with them as well. So, and you can also reinstate an elector count or return a settlement to them. So if you take a settlement from a bad guy, I think it gives you the option of handing it back over if you want to the faction leader. But the new stuff here, you've got Call to Arms. So this one, recruitment cost is -25%, and you get 1 extra capacity at a certain settlement for 3 turns. Kind of wimpy, but if you're in a pinch, it could work. Commendation. Lord's army gets 25... 2,500 experience. So that's the Lord and all the units in the army, I think. Now, I haven't used this before, I don't know. But if that's true, that's 2 extra chevrons for everybody in the army. And the Lord, it'll probably give them 1, maybe 2 levels. So that one's pretty good for 500. So if you need to level up a Lord pretty quickly, we might consider doing that on Karl next turn. We'll see. I don't know how greedy that is, but you can kind of power level people up, which is nice. Open the gate, so grants 1 population surplus to a region. So if you're really trying to power level something up, and it's going to take a while, especially if you're trying to go for tier 4 or tier 5 pop on something, and that can save you, 3 or 4 turns. So that can be pretty handy. Inquisition, so remove all, 50 corruption from a property. That's expensive. But if you're taking over a vampire property or a beastman property and it's just going to be a pain in the butt to have to sit there and deal with rebellions, that could be handy. Conscription. Target army instantly completes 1 turn of ongoing local and global recruitment. So that's expensive. But again, if your army's almost ready to go, but you're just waiting 3 turns on those demigryphs or whatever, you could make that 1 less turn. And that can add up. If that army is like a 3,000 gold army, you save a turn, that's 3,000 gold you're generating for that. So, it'd be good. Send aid. Now, this is one of the most useful or interesting ones to me. Spawn a degrading army for target empire faction at the target region. So you can spawn an army to potentially help them. Now, they control it, I'm pretty sure. But it can help them deal with hostility, and you get 2 fealty for doing that. Now, I don't know if the 2 fealty is permanent or if it only lasts for 5 turns, because it says it lasts for 5 turns. And that might just be the army that lasts. I don't know. You can't use it in your own region, so you can't protect yourself with it. But that one's really handy. Basically, it's 1,000 gold for 2 fealty, which is really good if you're trying to confederate with some of these people. Requisition, so all elector count state troops will be replenished instantly for 5,500. That's really strong. So, when you get a bunch of these things, like 6 elector counts or more, and you just pop this thing, and it just instantly gives you access to 6 more of them, that's going to be really good. Casus Belli, So this allows you to declare war on an elector count faction without suffering a loss of fealty with other election counts. So if there's somebody who's just really pesky that you know might go to war with you, or you just really want their property, you can declare war on them and take them out. That's probably not worth it. I mean, we'll see late game if there is just a holdout that just like refuses to confederate with you near the end of the game. I guess that could be good. But I think most of the time you're going to have enough bad guys to fight. You don't need to be fighting, you know, people that aren't making you fight them. And then unify, so confederate, target 10 fealty elector count. Now, I don't know if you have to do that, if you have to spend 2,500 to confederate. Again, that used to be something that was available for free. As soon as they hit 10, it automatically gives everyone else -2 fealty as well, so that's kind of a big deal. So I think you've got to choose your confederation targets wisely, it looks like, if that's the case. So again, I don't know if you still are going to be able to get it at rank 10. You just maybe have to wait until an event happens. And this just allows you to rush it, or if you have to do it this way. I'm not sure. Okay, but that's going to be it for this episode. So, sorry, I know it's a lot of talking, got a couple of fights, but next episode we're going to be running over here, taking this, taking that. You do actually have control of Helmgart, which, thank God, this was so annoying to have to try to fight this in the early game. You could do it, but it was a real pain in the butt. So we're going to continue to power up and try to come up here, take out Marienburg, if we can. It's going to be questionable if we're going to be strong enough to get in there. We're probably going to hire a general of the Empire. We'll talk about why. I know we're already really late here, but we'll probably hire someone else early. You also have access to a huge suite of specialty heroes and units that you can get, and specialty lords. So that's something that not a lot of factions have, but I guess it's mostly heroes. But you get access to... Where are they? They're going to be special. So you get Theodore Bruckner. I can't even remember him or how you hire him. But we can get him. You can get Felix and Gotrek. You can get Ulrika, Magdova. I've never hired her or this new guy. So you've got like 4 of these legendary heroes you can get access to eventually. This might only be for Elspeth. I'm not sure. But anyways, we've got a lot of kind of specialty units and different things that we can get. So it'll be fun. It'll be interesting. These guys, I believe you can only get those with the dude that's down in Lustria. But anyway, should be a fun campaign. Thank you very much. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy it. We'll get to a lot more action, a lot less talking next time. And otherwise, that's it. Have a good day. We'll see everybody next time. Be sure to like and subscribe.